Here and welcome to today's training. I am very, very excited. We have got a living legend here to present today. His name is Matt Emery. You should see him on the screen and me on the screen. If you can see us, let us know in the chat that you can hear me and see us. And then also let me know where you're tuning in from. We are very excited to have you here. We've got Corleana, Allison, Matt. Carol says time to learn. Yes, it is. Jane says, happy Tuesday, everyone. Jade in Bend, Oregon.
Yes.
Got Pedro in the house. Ken says, I'm looking forward to some inspiration and motivation to keep going. Let's see. We've got Kathleen in New Jersey, San Diego, and Pedro. Andrew all the way in Destin, Florida. Hey, Author Advantage Live is happening in Orlando, Florida. We've got Sitayesh in Norman, Oklahoma. Diana Lee, is a new student. Amazing. Good to see you, Diana. We've got Martin in Ohio, Emily in Las Vegas, Sima in Michigan. Here we go. Ove in Norway. All right,
nice.
Way too many more. I'm not going to read all these. There are a lot of you here. So I am very excited for this presentation. I'm going to pass it to your presenter here in just a minute. So Matt Emery is your presenter here today. And Matt has literally had conversations with, thousands of people at this point about their book?
Yeah, over 3,000-4,000.
It's unbelievable. So over 3,000-4,000 people about their book ideas, their challenges with their books, their goals with their books, their next steps. Like how does, to use a pun, which is actually the title of his book, is like, how does the rubber meet the road when it comes to getting your book done? And Matt is the author of that book. He works with us here at Self Publishing School. He's one of the first people that people talk to when they're looking to get started. He's also a student, just like you guys, and went through the program and published his book. So he's going to teach some lessons he's learned from going through this process himself, and also from literally having conversations and seeing the roadblocks that keep people from getting started. So, and yes, Ruth and everyone else, your chats go directly to Matt and myself, so you won't see each other's, but they will go directly to us. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and kick it off. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Matt Emery.
All right, let's go. Well, I'm excited for this. Well, let me get this. Let me share my screen with you. We're going to be talking about some fun stuff today. All right. So I'm coming to you. I see people all over the place. I'm curious if there's anybody from Austin, Texas. That's where I'm at. We're going to be talking about the 3 myths authors believe that stop them from getting published. So how to stop believing lies and get your book published in 90 days. If you stay till the end, I've got some great stuff for you. I've got my slides, I've got my notes, and this is supposed to be fun. And I'm with you on this guy throughout this presentation. So let's start out by, I'm curious, we're all writers here. Tell me in the chat, how do you feel about Skittles? I mean, Skittles is good, is an acceptable answer, but I think that you can do better, right? We are writers, so set the tone. We're gonna have some fun. Personally, I think Skittles are like a sunny summer day in the middle of a Michigan winter. So a little bit about me. I am from Brighton, Michigan. It took me 15 years of frustrating toiling before I got my first book published, but I wrote one when I was 17. So the one thing that I really want you to know about me before we proceed is I've always wanted to be a writer of some kind. And I had a rule that I could not call myself a writer until I sold a piece of writing. And so I was so obsessed with this idea and of working on a book when I was 16, 15, 17, that I actually faked an injury so that I wouldn't make the soccer team, so that I could spend more time working on this book. And I wrote 350 pages of this fiction novel when I was 17. But I'll be the first one to tell you it had a lot of room for improvement. I had dreams of being like the next Christopher Paolini, the guy who wrote Aragon. But my book turned out a little bit more like if Dr. Dolittle meets Time Cop. Like in one scene, the protagonist is talking to a squirrel, and in the next scene, he's killing this intruder from another world with an icicle. So imagine for a second, imagine writing dialogue for a squirrel. Like, what's up, squirrel? How's your day? Oh, it's nuts. These two eagles came down, they cornered me. Like, it's not a great recipe for a good book. And I never published that book, but despite never publishing it, I talked about it in literally every job interview for the next 5 years. And I got all the jobs, but none of them were writing jobs. So maybe you guys can relate to this. While I chased this writing ambition, I didn't really consider better alternatives or other alternatives. So I kind of stumbled my way into a sales career. There was this opportunity in college. I went to Michigan State, go green, to start a Greek newspaper. It's called The Odyssey. And my title was publisher. I remember they gave me this long job description, publisher. It's like, yeah, like that sounds like something I want to do. But all I really heard was, as publisher, you get to have a column on the first page. I was like, I'm sold. It turns out I was going to be responsible for everything, like selling ads, hiring photographers, hiring writers, managing the sales team, and doing all the distribution. But none of that mattered because I got to have a column on the first page. I was so sold. It's like, if I have to sell a little bit to get a first page column, yeah, sign me up. I'll do anything. So that's kind of how my sales career began. And after a decade of selling, I just got burnt out. I hadn't been writing any decent stories. This is still something that was a passion that was in my mind, nor had I really been living much of a decent story. So it's actually living kind of a sad story. So a couple of years ago, I bought a van. I turned it into an RV. I lived in it for a year with my girlfriend and our 2 huskies. It was 64 square feet. We traveled the country. After that was over, I started working for self-publishing school. So what Chandler was saying is, I'm the guy who calls you out of the blue and asks you about your book, which puts me in a position to talk to probably 15 or 20 people every day about their books, their ideas, sometimes why they have yet to come to fruition. I estimate that I've talked to probably about 3,500 people. And last December, about my experience in the van, I wrote my first book about it. It's called Where the Rubber Meets the Road, The Art of Giving Up the Things That Don't Serve You. And it ended up being a #1 new release and a #1 bestseller in January. And there's another couple books on the way. So fun fact, this is the van. That's the girl. That's Rory in the top picture in the middle. There's another one, and they shed a lot. So Chandler always talks about a book is like a key to the door that opens to Narnia. And I think for me, I mean, all of us, Skittles unlock the rainbow. I'm just looking at these comments. I don't like Skittles very much, Alexa says, but you love their commercials. Well, love this. Okay, so Chandler's talking about this idea. My version of Narnia, and everybody's version is a little bit different, is I always love the idea of the full-time writer lifestyle. It's like people like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, like travel the world and bring these great characters with you. Like so much freedom. And so everything that I did kind of was to feed this writing ambition. Like I found myself reading all those wayside exhibits when you're on a trail and you see like, learn about the trail. I'd read those just to cram these random tidbits of information about my surroundings so I could write more colorfully. I'm sure, I mean, you relate to that at all? Anyone else do that? Like just fill all this information that you don't think you're ever going to need, but it might make a good story someday. Might be able to write about it. So stories have always been in my life in one way or another. And making a living or enhancing my living through writing has always been there. It's calling to me. Is that why you guys are here? I mean, you feel something similar? Do you feel, I mean, are you called to write a book too? I suppose that's why we're here. And amongst this group, there's probably a lot of different reasons to write a book. I'm going to ask you in a minute. So if you want to drop that in the chat, let me know why you're thinking about writing a book. I'm still getting so many great Skittles comments. Skittles are an introduction to the various phases of color in one's life, from Helen. It's glorious. I love that. So you might be writing a book for legacy. It might be for authority or credibility or legitimacy. Zig Ziglar said, "My book was the most profitable thing that I ever did, and that would have been true if I never sold one copy." Maybe you're writing for fulfillment or purpose. Maybe you're writing for your business. It's for lead generation. Or maybe you're trying to elevate your voice. Maybe you just want to tell an epic story. So what's your reason? I mean, is it one of those? Impact? Setayesh says, "I want to write a book because I want to leave a legacy, to see if I can, to add adventure into my life, to give others hope, an idea that might impact this nation." Oh, I love that. Rusty Rauscher, I know this guy. He feels like he's pretty good at storytelling. That's exactly what I thought you'd say, Rusty. And you are. Enjoy telling stories to help people, to entertain. Awesome reasons. Great to have you on, Rusty. So you're here today because today feels like a good day to make some progress on your book. So let's do that. So we're going to have a little analogy. I think that writing a book is like a backpacking trip. Throughout this journey, you're going to go deep into the backcountry to reveal something that has been hidden. On some days, you're going to love it. You're going to be standing on top of this mountain. The sun is going to be in your face. You're going to have a handful of Skittles. It's all downhill all day. And other days, it's going to be cold and rainy and treacherous. And you're going to be thinking about, maybe I'll just use these pages that I've just written for one last bonfire before I give up. So first of all, this is Trail Guide Jim. He is here with us to take us on this journey. But Trail Guide Jim has some harsh news. Not everybody here is going to make it. And he doesn't mean that you're going to die. He means not everybody here will write their book. And if you're the kind of person who likes to manifest things in your life, if you know the power of putting things out in the world, I invite you to throw in the chat, "I will write a book this year." But writing a book takes a lot of deliberate intention. It takes a lot of discipline to follow the process. So today, on this journey, over the next 45 minutes or so, I am going to serve as Trail Guide Jim. I'm going to keep everybody alive. And the reason I'm qualified to do that is over the last 15 years, I have been dedicated to two things. Number one, locating all the pits an aspiring author can possibly fall into, most of those firsthand. And number two is learning the process on how to write a book in 3 months that you will be proud to publish. Boom. And so as I mentioned before, and as Chandler mentioned, I love all these. Pamela will write a book this year. Dolores is going to write a book this year. Lawrence is going to write a book this year. Claire will write a book this year. Through these 3,500 conversations with people, that is why I feel so qualified to talk about this, is I've learned that the main things that have plagued me all these years are the same things that plague the vast majority of people. And I decided to publish my own book. And it actually did pretty well. It was a #1 new release in 2 categories. It's a #1 bestseller in 1 category in January. I've got a second book coming out on June 25th, right around the corner. It's a collaboration with a group of high-ticket salespeople. It's called Breaking the Charts: How to 2x Your Sales in 60 Days or Less. And the real passion project, is a book called Parallax, coming out at the end of the year. It's a fantasy adventure story of a mother and a son crossing a war-torn continent on a quest for home, but a prophecy gets in the way. Anybody here thinking about, do I want to write fiction, nonfiction, business books? Well, you don't have to pick. Just write them all. We're going to pick which one perhaps to start with, but you don't have to find a niche. So on this, over the next 45 minutes, what you're going to learn is we're going to debunk these 3 myths that authors believe that stop them from getting published. We're going to talk about the exact strategy I use to plan, write, and publish a book. It's a bestseller in 90 days. I actually did it in 81 days. The step-by-step process that I teach students to successfully leave the paralysis by analysis trap behind, and the guerrilla launch model, which is how I successfully launched my book into the bestsellers charts. I don't have an email list. I don't have this huge social media following. I spent barely any money on advertising. So that's what we're here for. And at the end, you'll get some information also on how you can personally work with us. All right, let's start this hike. So what's in the backpack? Pen, paper, and a participation trophy. But that one you have to earn. So we're here together. I see lots of people participating, so I'm not worried that everybody's getting a trophy today. Thanks, Jade, for looking forward to my book. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you as well. Cool. So Trail Guide Jim says, life is a series of revelations hidden by preconceived notions, revealed by new information. Yeah, Trail Guide Jim sometimes says wise stuff. Maybe you want to listen. 1 year ago, I had never sold a single piece of writing. I was not a writer by my own definition. Then a couple things happened in sequence that liberated me from these three preconceived notions. The first one, the first myth one is you don't have anything important to say. Myth two is your first book has to be long and perfect. It's like it has to be the next Harry Potter. And myth three, it is going to take many years. So we're going to replace these over the next 20 minutes or so with better truths, because these are not true. So myth one, you don't have anything important to say. This false belief shows up in a variety of ways. I like to sum this false belief up that you don't have anything important to say, or I don't have anything important to say, as fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I call it FUD, because it kind of sounds like a dirty word, and it is. FUD. And this might show up, you might say to yourself, or you might feel this, I am not an expert. I don't have a degree, a certification, an accreditation. That's the imposter syndrome. Basically what that is you might have been doing something for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And at this point, you just make it look easy. And because you make it look easy, you start to think that it is easy and you discount its value. So there in that overlap lies the imposter syndrome. Just because you make something look easy doesn't mean that it is easy. There's still a lot of people that can learn from that. You might say, well, people are going to see me as a fraud. Who cares what I have to say? I'm just a kid. I'm just a normal, ordinary person. I have not lived through anything remarkable. No plane crashes. I was never adrift at sea. I was never a prisoner of war. No critical illnesses. So who cares what I have to say? And if bonus points to anybody who knows what book, what story I'm referencing in that last bullet point, if you can get that correct, serious bonus points and respect. That's a toughie. I'll keep an eye out for anybody getting it right. So the truth is you are undervaluing what you know. I'll tell you a little story over here about Sandra Clark. Here's an example of somebody in 1986. And it's not just what you know, it's also what you experience. So 1986, Sandra Clark could not stay with a patient who asked her to stay. When she returned, the patient had died. And in 2001, she was the key in starting No One Dies Alone, a program where volunteers sit with terminal patients who have no one else. And the program is now worldwide. It's not Catcher in the Rye. It's not John McCain. Trox. Trox got it. I'm not gonna tell you the answer yet. I'm going back to my question from a minute ago. There's a correct answer in the chat so far. So another example of this, maybe you've heard of this guy. His name's Samuel Morse. Now, Samuel Morse was a painter, and he lived in New Haven, Connecticut. And Samuel Morse was invited down to Washington, D.C. to do a painting of Lafayette. And it's about 300 miles, and he rode his horse, and he got there, and he had a little studio set up, and he was waiting for Lafayette to come in the next couple of days. And instead of Lafayette, he gets a knock on his door, and it's this courier on horseback. And the courier says, Samuel, your wife is gravely ill, and you need to go home immediately. So Samuel Morse hops on his horse, and he rides as hard as he can back to New Haven, Connecticut. And he's running across these autumn crunchy leaves, and he gets to his house, and he goes inside, and he finds out that his wife has passed away. In fact, his wife had already passed away before the courier ever even delivered the message to his house, to his studio in DC. And he felt such pain in having to deal with that, that he did something so that nobody ever has to feel pain like that again, or exactly like that. He did his best, and he created Morse code. And so people can finally communicate over vast distances. Bonus points to the person who can decode the Morse code at the top of this page. That's a tough one. That's level 10. So another story. We work with this gal. Her name is Laura. She wrote a book called Mess to Majestic. Just an ordinary person that living in ordinary life, but decided to write this book about how she went from being a mess to being majestic. Someone wrote a review on Laura's book. They said, I recommend it highly. Whether you struggle with addictions, know someone who does, or simply want to better understand why people do, this book is worth reading. A couple other people here. Dylan Barr wrote The Happiness Gap. Pedro Matos, I'll talk about him in a moment. Kathy Carter was someone I talked to yesterday who just published her book. It's called Tolerated Not Wanted, Finding God in the Aftermath of Childhood Trauma. And these are ordinary people. But what makes them extraordinary is they all decided to take what had crushed them and turn it into a calling. So we don't have time for myths. The truth is, you do have something really valuable that you can share. And maybe you already have an idea, maybe you don't. If you don't have an idea, then here's a little quick idea finder. Maybe there are some broken record conversations that you're having all the time. Have you ever given someone the same advice over and over, and when they finally take the advice, they give someone else credit? It's kind of annoying, right? But it's easier to learn from people, a particular person in a particular situation. Often it's people that you like and trust. Sometimes it just takes the right person saying something for it to sink in. So maybe another idea is you write about that good valley that you went through, that hard time that taught you so much. What do you want to pass on from your life experience? What do you want to read? What do you wish that you would have read in a book 10 years ago? So think about that stuff. Eliminate this first myth. You do have something valuable that you can teach. And a book is a fantastic way to do it. And it doesn't need to be a self-help book. It can be a book about, what you learned when you were traveling in a van for a year. Lessons can be caught along the way. I've learned valuable lessons from fiction, from poetry, from memoirs, from Game of Thrones. Myth number 2, my first book has to be long and perfect. My first book has to be long and perfect. That doesn't seem true. But this shows up, I have something to say, but not enough to fill 300 pages. I'll stick to blogging. I cannot write like John Steinbeck, Patrick Rothfuss, Madeline Miller, Laura Hillenbrand. By the way, the answer to the question, who was I talking about, is Laura Hillenbrand's Unbroken, also turned into a movie that Angelina Jolie produced, or she directed. Is fantastic. Great story. I don't have the skills to write the book I feel I was born to write. It needs to be perfect. It's never good enough. It has to be the next Harry Potter. And here's a little comic of a brain and a heart having a conversation. Doesn't it feel good just to let go of something instead of trying to make it perfect? Any of you guys perfectionists? If so, put perfectionist in the chat. This is the one that really I struggled with the most. I'd write the beginning part, then I'd write the end part, and I'd realize, man, the end is so much better than the beginning. Now I got to go write the beginning again. But now the beginning is better than the end. So it's a vicious cycle. Yep. Grace is a perfectionist. Vicky, Stephanie, Rusty, Julian, James, Connie, Les. I know. Perfectionist, sad face. Truth. All right, so moving on. The truth is, a completed book is better than 2 perfect chapters. Writing your magnum opus is the end of your writing journey. It's not the beginning. That's like the work that you will be known for if you want to write more than 1 book. If that's your goal, that's the end. So since we're on this backpacking trip together, you will never experience the view from the top of the mountain unless you put in the steps to get there. There's going to be rainy days. There's going to be twisted ankles. There already has been. There will be false summits. But even though your destination is far ahead, it's not that far ahead, maybe the end, the final destination, but each moment you spend climbing is getting you closer to that. So keep climbing. And if you can learn to love the moments of that grind, then you'll get there. So some trail tips coming from Trail Guide Jim. Your first book is probably going to be between 15 and 40,000 words. That's like 60 to 160 pages. It doesn't need to be long. Write what you know. Think of it as practice. Don't edit while you write, just write. And a bonus from Jim, don't squat with your spurs on. Rusty likes that one. And so back in September of last year, right before I started working on my book, which started in October, I had a conversation with this guy, Pedro. He's actually one of our teammates at Self-Publishing School. Some of you may have seen him. Pedro's book, as you can see, is 90 pages. He wrote the entire thing in April of 2018. And let me say, before I ever had this conversation, so I met him in July until September, Pedro is 100% a published author. And anytime I thought of him, I knew that he had published a book. I'd seen the book, I just hadn't talked to him about it. He's a 20-year-old college dropout. He's not from the US. It would have been easy for him to feel like an outsider, but he wrote this book anyway. And the people that read his book loved it and wrote, here's a couple reviews. The book makes you believe that anything is possible. In a world with too much cynicism and empty promises, it's good to read a book with promises that deliver. This is a story of an immigrant, and it shows you how difficult it can be turning your life upside down and starting a new life on the other side of the world. This being said, I feel this book should be read by everyone, as the overall ideology behind this book is something everyone can learn from. So Pedro is an author. He did it. Done is better than perfect. My book is not perfect, not even close. There's kind of an asymptotic approach to perfect, where the harder you try, the closer you get, the more effort it takes to just get incrementally better. Settle for 90%. Anything beyond that, you're never going to get there. So myth 3, it's going to take many years. This shows up, I have to be extremely selective with my book idea because I'm committing this for a year or more. I'm too busy to commit to something as big as a book. I don't know what I'm doing well enough to know that my effort is productive. I don't have time. It says I do not have time to taste. I guess it's supposed to say I do not have time to waste. I think my dog might have gotten in here and switched that, because he definitely doesn't have time to taste. I need to know that this is leading somewhere. Otherwise, how do I justify time spent away from my family? Any of these sound like you? A friend? You're too busy? Thinking this over here, this guy juggling, this is someone thinking a book would never fit into their already busy lives. The truth is, a book is a journey of 50 steps, not 50,000 steps. And if you felt like not knowing the process has held you back, if you've taken 1,000 steps and found yourself back at the beginning, it's because you don't know the process. If that sounds like you, if you're have ever had writer's block, if you've ever felt like frustration and you don't know where to go from here, it's that you don't know the process. If you can be sure, if you took 5 steps forward and then 4 steps back, you might end up feeling like a book is 9 times harder than it needs to be, or than it actually is. But if you know that every step is in the right direction, it's truly 50 steps. And if you can relate with that at all, I know we have a lot of perfectionists in this group. Anybody that just struggle with the process too, drop process in the chat. See who you are, because this is definitely me too. All right. So trail tips coming from Jim. Oh, don't look at that one yet. You've probably heard proper preparation prevents poor performance. Well, Jim is a little bit of a stickler, and he wants you to do better than just help you prevent poor performance. He wants you to understand that purposeful preparation prospers potential. Number 2, don't confuse perspiration with productivity. Most people really do fail to write a book because they don't know the process. Trail Guide also wants to let you know that if you're ever in a survival situation in the wild, if you're sweating, you're moving too fast. That's just a bonus. Has nothing to do with writing. With a proper outline and the proper steps the purposeful steps to get yourself to a proper outline, you can write your book in weeks, and you can speak your book in a matter of hours. So myth number 3, it is not going to take many years. You can get a great book done in 90 days. All right. So the truth, here are the things that we're going to move forward knowing. Number 1, you do have something valuable that you can teach. Number 2, done is better than perfect. And for you, Samantha and Sandy and Yashika and Andrew, Makai, Kiana, Connie, you can get a great book done in 90 days. So there's about to be an epic discovery that happens along this backpacking trip. Something I've learned from all my years in the woods is that there's always a gem if you stay on the trail long enough, and you just found a gem. So this is the process, but at this point in the hike, it was you, found something on the ground. You pick it up, and it's different than anything you've ever seen before. It's interesting. It's clearly something valuable. Trail Guide Jim tells you, you just found a dinosaur bone. You realize that you have something valuable in this dinosaur bone, in this idea. And in order to get this out, to share it with the world, you're going to have to do some digging. You realize there's more out here. We're out in the wild. You just found a bone. There's more to this skeleton. But there's a process before you can show your dinosaur to the world. So step number 1 is the excavation. Step 2 is the categorization. Step 3 is assembling the skeleton. This is basically the outline. Basically, at the end of step 3, you've got what we're looking at right here in front of us. Step 4 is adding the flesh and blood. And then to kind of break away from the amazing analogy, 5 and 6 are production and launch. So we're going to get into step 1 first. And as we get into this, I'm going to kind of go through this stuff pretty quickly, but there is a wealth of information on that Chandler and the rest of our team have put together on this subject, on mind mapping and this whole process. So I'm going to go through this and we're going to start on it. But if you wanted to spend more time on this in the end, then check out Chandler's YouTube channel. He's about to drop the link to everybody in the chat. So take a look on that and just know, like, there's way more information you get about mind mapping if you check out his YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that. He's going to put that in there probably in the next 30 seconds or so. And then if you go in there, come right back, subscribe to the channel, drop I subscribed. Boom, he just put it in there. Drop I subscribe in the chat, and then come back to that later on and check out this stuff. But we got another 25 minutes together, so you can look at that later, because I got some tips on how to do this too. Basically, on a piece of paper, let's get your book started. So this is where you're going to start, with a bubble in the center of paper. And how you create a mind map, that's what this is. Excavation, that keeps with the analogy, but really this is a mind map. So you're going to draw a bubble in the center of the piece of paper. And inside that bubble, you're going to write your book topic. And then outside of that bubble, you are going to write out everything that you can think of on that topic. So this is an excavation. So keep listing them. Go for a walk with your mind map if you need to. There are a lot of walks involved in writing a book. And the philosophy here is, in the center, you've determined what kind of dinosaur this is. And as you go through your mind map, sometimes you realize that a particular bone does not belong to this dinosaur. Maybe you'll realize that what you thought was one book is actually 2 or 3 or a whole family of books. So here's what it starts to look like. In this example, we're doing cookbook recipes. We've listed them all out. This is kind of getting to the end of step 1 in this excavation. The bones are all laid out. And now we got to figure out what's what. Where do these things go? So we're going to move into step 2, is categorization. And ultimately what you're trying to do here is color code or organize these sections, categorize these sections into the chapters that they will become. I did it with color coding, pencils, colored with markers, but basically you're just grouping these together. As a rule of thumb, you're looking for 5 sections and 3 chapters per section. So like you can see here that snacks is a section, energy bars, fruit, other. So there's the subcategory, and then there's the chapters below that section. When I did this, I got so carried away with this that I had this huge piece of paper filled. And that's actually a great place to be, because you'll probably use a lot of that stuff. Maybe not all of it, but just know that this is an art. It's not a science. Aim for fun, aim for progress. Don't aim for perfection, and you'll get there. And after you've subdivided these, you're going to end up with these 5 sections, and we can move into step 3. That's actually assembling the skeleton. So your 5 sections with 3 points underneath each section. I know you're not going to be doing all of this right now. You're just going to be kind of thinking it through and taking some notes. But think, if your book was 20,000 words, you're writing about 1,300 words per section. And then you don't have to think, I got to write this huge book. I just let me come up with 1,300 words about this one thing, and then the second thing. So that's a formula that takes time and organization, but it could be structured by this weekend. And you can have the entire skeleton of this beast assembled by the weekend. And the beauty is that you'll know exactly, this is what I love about this, is you'll know exactly what your book is going to look like, and you'll not even have written a single word yet. This works for cookbooks, memoirs, fiction. The other day I was sitting up at a picnic table doing this exact thing, and I realized this one skill probably saved me 6 months, because I realized that I needed to change something about my book and my outline that I would have only figured that out through writing in my past experience. And I would have had to have erased probably 100 and some pages. So I see Kitty subscribed, Stephanie subscribed, Balvina, James, Monique, Jennifer, Grace, Martin, Sally. So thanks for that. All right, so now we get to the fun part. You got the skeleton. Now we add the flesh and blood. So how fast can you really write your rough draft? My advice would be, number 1, get on a schedule. Once you have this outline totally assembled, get on a schedule, have a word count per week goal, say, 3,000 to 8,000 words. If your book is 15,000 words or 40,000 words, then divide it up. When do you want to have it done? Get on a schedule, have a goal. And with that goal, you can easily write your book in 5 weeks. And also say, follow your outline, but be open to better ideas. Like, let's say you put this whole thing together and you realize that this outline was of this dinosaur with these tiny, wacky looking weird arms. Maybe you just take a little bit of a liberty and you just give him regular arms. I won't tell the paleontologists. And also, I'll say this again because I cannot stress this enough. Do not edit while you write. So that's the process. Whoops. So easy, an 8-year-old can do it. This is Emma Sumner. She wrote and published Fairies of Waterfall Island. We'll get into some results now. 4,000 in book sales in 3 months. She had some major TV appearances. She did a book signing with 10,000 people. And now she's got passive income. She literally did the work, and now she'll get paid on this forever. So maybe not no more trading time for money, but a lot less trading time for money. Pretty awesome, right? Scott, here's another one of our students. This is actually a guy that worked with us, but he joined self-publishing school. He finished his book in 90 days. He wrote and published Lead Generate, 61 days to double your pay. In exactly 30 days, he had 13,000 in book royalties, 50,000 in book and deals booked, a Rockstar employee, $59,000 extra a year in pay bump. So a book can make a big difference. And as we move into these last 2 steps, I'm going to go pretty quickly through these because I think the first 4 are the most important. The 5th one is your production. That's you get your rough draft done. You go through a phase of self-editing. Go look through your book, read your own book. Then you get an editor, which is completely imperative. Just because your editor edited your book and they're a professional doesn't mean you shouldn't go back and look at your book again. So give it a twice over. Then you're going to find a formatter. You're going to find a cover design. That's your product. You know, that's putting the nice cover and all the spice in this book to make it actually sell. It used to be that the hardest parts of publishing were actually getting your book published. The nice thing now is, I'd say the hardest parts are actually writing it and then differentiating it from literally the millions of books that are out there in the world. But you can publish onto Amazon for free, and they'll do it print on demand. So you don't have to buy books. You don't have to manage your inventory. You publish it, someone buys a copy, they print a copy, they ship a copy, you get paid. So that part is easy now. But it is ever more crucial because of the millions of books that can just easily be published to Amazon to do things that differentiate your book. And that's where the launch comes in. And honestly, this is a really fun, yet really crucial phase. This is probably the highest leverage activity you'll do for your book. And the steps to a successful launch: get a good cover that grabs attention, like this one. We're going to come back to that. This is mine. I was really happy with how this turned out. So having a great cover. Whoever says don't judge a book by its cover is right, but guess what they're not talking about? They're not talking about books. This is Chandler's from his book Published, really clear to the point, know exactly what your book's about. So the other steps to a successful book launch is building a launch team and get ongoing reviews to keep the Amazon algorithm happy. That's definitely something to check out in some of the other materials, is those ongoing reviews. There's actually another webinar that we do called Sell More Books, specifically for this purpose. So creating a launch team. A launch team, first of all, what is it? It's a group of people supporting your book. They agree to read your book. They agree to leave a review on day 1. They agree to share your books with friends, support the launch. What's in it for them is they'll get a free copy or a 99-cent copy. They'll get their name in the book. They'll get to be a part of something inspiring. They'll get personal satisfaction of helping something meaningful. Sometimes as an author, you can add some cool bonuses that are relevant to your book. This was mine. I actually built a website. It's MatthewEmery.com. And I literally invited everyone to join my launch team. Hey, Matt, what are you doing? Or what's up? What have you been doing lately? Oh, I'm actually working on a book. I just finished it, in fact, and I'm launching it, at the end of December. I'm looking to build a launch team. I'd love for you to join. So just like infuse this. You're going to want to talk about your book. It's going to be so easy. Just remember to mention your launch team. I made sure to promote it as this win-win. It's not a complete favor. This is something that you're going to get something great out of this too. I made it super easy for people to join. It was just an email address and phone number. I generated a launch team email list, which quickly grew past 100. I corresponded with my launch team using that mass email list for big information, but personalized texts to hold people accountable. That's why the phone number is key. Here's another example of one. Maybe you screenshot this because there's a lot of information here, but basically the key is got the launch date, you got your book title, you got what's in it for your launch team and why they should join. In Anita's case, she just launched her book the other day, but oh, it's today. Today her book is launching. And she said she'd return the favor by buying your book. If you had a book, she'd also invite you to have this Zoom call where she talks about her process and some other secrets. So in the guerrilla launch model, it's about holding people accountable. It's about asking them to write an honest review and helping them understand how this helps your audience find the book. And it's about never stopping searching for win-wins. That is, I've got a friend that has a fragrance company and he's got a product that he just launched. And it's like, I'm going to buy his product. I'm going to review his product. And then we're going to talk about his product. And in that conversation, I'm going to ask him to do the same thing for the book. And he's already done that. So that's the idea. It's bringing people in. So if you wanted to have a $10,000 launch on your book, we're talking a combination of this. 1,800 copies of an ebook at $8, a little over 1,700 copies of a print book, a little over 1,200 copies of an audiobook, or some combination of this, but it's not nearly as difficult to do if you do all of these things. So what happens if you follow these steps? I'm going to breeze through this, but David McKay, he's one of our students, has made over 60,000 on his books. Emily is another one. She's making over 10,000 a month from her coaching business that's come from this book. Dave created $1 million business from his book within 18 months. Started a company. Kat added an extra 30,000 that month from her book. This guy's had so much extra credibility and legitimacy. He's now quoting his clients 3 times what he used to. So he tripled his rates. So pretty awesome, right? Imagine 3 months from now being in a position where you're starting to sell a book. Some of you are probably wondering how you can go more in depth about your idea. Some of you just had such a great time eating Skittles with Trail Guy Jim that you want to walk with him some more, maybe find another dinosaur, maybe unearth this dinosaur together. So really, what is self-publishing school? Chandler likes to describe it as a mix of Indiana Jones and Jillian Michaels, which is like, you're out there, you're doing the work, you're on your own, you're going and getting it, you're getting after it. But then also, you've got somebody that's working with you, that's encouraging you, that's holding you accountable. To date, none of our coaches has ever screamed in someone's face, but they do really bring the most out of you. And they really, I think an accountability partner is the reason why I had my book done so quickly. Somebody to check in on you. Yeah, she is. None of our coaches are nearly that scary. So self-publishing school is a step-by-step online education program for writing, marketing, and publishing your book. It's not unreasonable to think about this. Someone who's written 20 books is going to do things differently than someone who's writing their first. So we make sure to get it absolutely right the first time, because I know you're probably right when you say, I don't have time to waste. It's also one-on-one coaching from your personal coach. It's live weekly group coaching with Chandler and some of the other coaches. It's access to a Rolodex of outsourcers to do the hard work for you, like editing, the cover designing, the formatting. You stick with writing, unless you're a really creative person. Let someone stick with what they're great at. And we have a community. I honestly, sometimes I forget that I wrote a book, and I forget that that's something that I aspired to do for so long. And I forget that it's like an accomplishment because I'm just surrounded by people. I'm surrounded in a community where that's just what we do. And that is so powerful. Roberta, that's hilarious. Gary can scream, but not in your face, probably. Roberta in the chat got a funny comment. So here's where some of our students are in the US. and well, in the Americas, let's just say in this section of the globe. And here is, we're working with students in over 80 countries around the world. So next steps, I want to invite you all to do something. If you feel like you're ready to solve your challenges, if you feel like you're ready to get your book out there, I'm going to offer the opportunity to book a strategy call with me and the rest of the team. And what we're going to cover, we're setting aside time in the next 48 hours to speak with you personally about how you can apply these ideas starting right now. Take what you've already learned and just like put it into play. On the session, you'll work with one of our experts to craft a step-by-step process on writing and marketing and publishing your book successfully. We're basically going to talk about your book, your goals, like what would make you feel like all the time and energy and money is worth it, your commitment, and your challenges. Whatever's holding you back, we'll show you how to overcome it. And we will optimize for the best possible solution for you. So you're going to have an opportunity to book a call in just a minute. The cost of this call is free, but I highly recommend it. 1 year ago, I had all but given up on this writing dream. I had still never sold any piece of my writing. I was still not a writer. In fact, writing is just this thing I wanted to do when I felt like being frustrated. I had relegated the thought of writing a book to that dusty someday file. I think we all have one of those. Someday the circumstances would be perfect. Someday I would have the skill. Someday might never come. So I got hired in July. I started working with my coach. It's actually a team. I say coach, but it's really a team of people and a lot of group involvement and a lot of community. That's what I love about it. I finished writing my book November 9th, literally 39 days, and I published it December 21st. So only book this call if you're serious about getting your book done now. You're serious about writing a great book. You hold yourself to the highest standard of integrity, and you're serious about investing in yourself. Because that's doing what needs to be done to launch this book successfully. So we're going to put the link here in the chat so that you can book a call. I'm going to do that right now. But definitely do it. And when you do, go ahead and say, I booked a call in the chat. And if you're really excited, add some exclamation points. And if you're really, really excited, all caps.
Awesome. And I just dropped a link as well. So what you should be able to do is you should just see a pop-up just now, which, by the way, let's give some love to Matt. Incredible job with your presentation, Matt. This is great. Also love the hiker gym analogy. Kiana just booked a call. Amazing. Yes, all you have to do is click the link. There should be a blue apply now button. Click the link, head on over to that page, book a call. Right on that page, you should be able to find a time that's closest to now that works for you. Go ahead and click the link, fill out a couple questions, press submit, and book the call there. This is with, it's about a 45-minute call with Matt or with one of our other strategists at Self Publishing School. These are experts, folks who have literally talked with hundreds of people going through this process. And so they'll be able to help you. And if you're ready to get started, and I think Matt mentioned this, but we're very picky about who we work with. So, we have about 3,000 people per month apply to work with us. We only accept about 8%. So a handful of those folks. Harvard's acceptance rate is about 5 to 6%. So you could say that it's almost as hard to get into self-publishing school as it is to get into Harvard. And that's the truth, because we're picky about who we work with, and we want to work with people who implement. But if you're fit, and if we feel like you qualify to work with us and it makes sense, we'll talk to you about what that looks like on that call. I see E booked a call. Amazing. Todd is booked. Sema says, thanks, Matt. Awesome. Sheila wants to book a call. Okay, perfect. Click the link and you can find that there. Kitty is booked. Charlotte says, I would like to book a call. Let's see. Ruth has booked a call twice. So it might have been disqualified, Ruth. So just double check and resubmit an application. Andrew says this was great. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Roberta. Two Robertas. Roberta says, I am booked. And then the other one says, you're an expert curator of SPS personnel. Everyone is a gym. Mille Grazi. Love it. Awesome. Well, hey, Matt, I think you got a couple more slides and then we can open up for final call to book a call and also final questions.
Yeah, I think Jim might have a few more things that he wanted us to cover. But really, why are we doing this? Writing and publishing a book has changed my life forever. And it was 5 months ago, 6 months ago, and it's already so evident. And I love this stuff. I love helping people. I love giving back. I love sharing the things that have worked for me. I'd love to give you this feeling. And I think, well, I know you might be interested in our help writing and launching your book successfully. So someone asked in the chat if it would cost money. Yes, it does. I'd say the people that we select to work with us, we do so because we're confident that we can actually not just help you publish a book, but genuinely have a successful book that does a lot for your life. Often people that I see, students of ours that go and are celebrating books on the bestseller list, will have invested somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000. So I'm going to have more questions, I'm sure, and I'll keep an eye on them in the chat. Here's the link again. I'd love to see people continuing to say book to call. Jade, I remember talking to you. I see that in the chat. You and I talked a couple weeks ago. When you book a call, or when you get to the screen, the first thing you're going to see is this, and you are going to have options to select from. If something happens, like let's say you don't have time in the next 48 hours, save this link, come back to it, or if you just wait maybe 5 minutes, people are going to book up to the next 48 hours, and then maybe you'll have something on Thursday or Friday that becomes available. If the demand is there, I think there are limited slots, but if the demand is there, maybe I can open some stuff up for Friday. You'll see this after you book your call. And there it is again.
Awesome. All right. Hey, comment in the chat. I booked a call. If you booked a call, we're going to stay on for just a few more minutes. If you have any questions, and I see Sheila says, Matt, you did great. I see, let's see. Rhonda says, thanks for this great information. Sheila says, for some reason, I cannot book a call. You should be able to at that link, just click the blue apply now button. And you just have to fill out all of the questions and press submit. I see we've got William is booked. David says, fantastic. Elaine says, this has been very eye-opening. Melissa says, I'm booked and I can't wait to start. Penny says, thanks for all. Very well done. Awesome. Andrew says, I booked, I think, didn't get a response. So it should have taken you to a thank you page if you did successfully, Andrew. Also look for a confirmation email. Monique booked a call. Awesome.
And yes, we will call you.
Yes, we'll call you at the number that you give us. Rusty's booked. Says Sheila is booked for tomorrow. Oh, awesome. Yeah, that sounds good, Jade.
Trail Guy Jim says, trail maps don't show where the bears are. That's why he suggests that you bring him with you rather than just taking these resources and going. So book a call so you can bring Trail Guy Jim along, and he can keep you safe from bears.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Let's see. Christine says, I booked a call. Robert booked a call. I guess maybe give some love for Trail Guy Jim in the chat as well. Oh, Andrew is now booked and stoked. Awesome. Sally, yeah, if you're having trouble, just reach out to the team at the number on the screen. you can give them a call, and they'll be able to help you there. And Sheila, the same as well. If for some reason you're having trouble with booking a call, just give us a call right at the number on the screen. It's 864-301-9789. And if you're having trouble booking a call, Don booked a call. Awesome. Ken says, does self-publishing school work for writing an academic textbook or workbook? You want to touch on that?
Do you want to?
Sure. Yes. So we don't explicitly go through the textbook or workbook writing process, but the principles are universal. So the answer is yes and no. We won't have specific lessons for that. I know Sean on our team, who's our community manager, he's done multiple academic textbooks. He's a physical therapist, so kind of in that realm. We don't specifically walk through textbook, workbook, but all the universal principles apply for sure. Janice says, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chandler. Awesome. Vicky says, I booked a call.
Makai says, interested in launch team presentations. If you have a book, Makai, and you want to talk about launch and marketing and promotions, yeah, book a time and we can talk about that too.
Awesome. We also have some really great material on the SBS blog. So if you search Launch Team Self-Publishing School on Google, you should find, I think we've got a video on the YouTube channel as well as a blog post on that as well. Callistus booked the call. Rusty says, no clue what I want to write about, but perhaps this can help me find that. Absolutely. We have students all the time who join not quite sure what they want to write about. And then they work through the process with Self-Publishing School and we help them find that. Let's see. Don says, book the call. When did I book? So you should have gotten a confirmation email and it would be exactly at the time that you selected. Awesome. Rusty says, much love, Matt. You did a fantastic job, as I knew you would. Certainly enjoyed it and looking forward to working with you. Grace says, amazing presentation. Thank you to both for hosting this. Let's see. Let's see. I'm looking at a couple final things. We're going to wrap in just a minute, guys. If you haven't already, click the blue Apply Now button. Go ahead and book a call at that link and comment in the chat and just say, I booked a call. So comment in the chat and just say, I booked a call. If you booked a call. And if you have any final questions, comment here in the chat as well. And then, yes, final call for questions and final call to book a call. I'm sorry, getting distracted by all the chats here. So let's see, we've got, Vicky says, I have a book that needs published to start a movement. Amazing. We can help with that. Roberta says, how can I ask folks from SPS to be on my launch team in the mastermind community? Let's see. Allison is booked. Says booked. Sorry, the dog got out. Who let the dogs out? That's the real question. All right. I'm trying to scroll through here and see if there's any questions, any other questions.
Me too. Satayesh asked how many people should be part of your launch team. The more, the merrier. I think I ended up a little over 100, but
wow,
50 great. Or more.
Yeah. And quality over quantity. So I'd rather have 15 extremely committed people than 50 people who are kind of like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll check that out. Because it's definitely a quality over quantity thing. That being said, the highest quantity of quality people that you can get. All right. Allison says, thank you so much. Lindsay says, great job, guys. May says, thank you for the webinar. Let's see. Looking to see if we got any final things here. You can find the slides on the page. It's at self-publishingschool.com/apply. You can find slides, notes, webinar workbook, etc. at the very bottom of that page. There's a little link at the bottom of that says click here to get the slides and notes. And you can find slides and notes on that page. Awesome. Well, hey, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you so much for your attention. Once again, let's give Matt some love in the chat here. Amazing webinar and amazing training. So great job, bud. Love the stories, love the examples, loved, is Trail Guide Jim, right?
Trail Guide Jim. Oh, by the way, the Morse code was, you can do it. fun fact.
Nice. Gyms.
Nobody got that
throughout
right.
The webinar. I love that. The obscure movie and book references, all of it. So great work, Matt. Hey, everyone, click a link. Click the link in the chat to book a call. Is this your phone number on the screen here, Matt?
That is my phone number. Yeah, I have a couple voicemails that have come in. I'll call you right back. Well, as soon as I can.
So if you're having trouble booking a call, feel free to call Matt at this number here, and we could get you booked. I know a couple people mentioned that in the chat, and so if for some reason you're having trouble, you can do that. Either way, go to self-publishingschool.com/apply, book a call, comment in the chat and just say, I booked a call. And we're excited for you. I think for me, whenever I'm doing presentations like this, for Matt in this instance, and for you as the attendee, the litmus test or measure of success for this presentation is, do you implement what you just learned? And so, 90 days from now, 6 months from now, have you been implementing what you learned here today? I don't want this to be, just a cool and fun training that you put up on your shelf-esteem, right? It helps you feel good about yourself, but you don't do anything with it. Implement what you learned here today. And what was that final quote from Trail Guide Jim about implementing that you shared just a little bit ago?
Trail maps don't show where the bears are. What are you saying? Which one?
It was the one that right as we got into the Q&A about implementing and getting help.
Man, those Trail Guide Jim quotes are elusive.
All right. Well, you have to go back and watch the replay. But hey, thanks everyone. Let's implement. It's time to implement. Work on your mind map right now. Book a call right now. Show up to your call prepared to chat, and we can't wait to help you keep moving forward in the process. So thanks once again, and we'll talk to you real soon.